Welcome to Beyond Fantasyland, conversations on sex, politics, and religion with your host, Kent Craybill. In this episode, Kent talks to Kellie Sullivan Herring about her journey out of evangelicalism, her son's coming out, and the beauty of life with a transgender child. Kellie grew up in a fundamentalist evangelical family, attended Christian schools, and now identifies as an atheist. She is the proud mom of 3 spectacular humans, one of whom is a trans boy. Kellie is a fierce advocate, ally, activist, and all-around amazing person. Welcome, Kellie.
Kellie Herring, welcome to Beyond Fantasyland. I'm excited to have you here today. We're going to talk about a lot of topics, but I want people to really understand transgender issues. That's my main goal today. But you have a story and you and I have a history. And so before we get to transgender issues, I think we need to talk about your background. We need to talk about LGBTQ plus issues and probably your faith background and spend some time in that, because transgender issues in your life, and I know you're going to share this with it, it's very personal to you, but it wasn't always that way. And so let's back up a little bit. And why don't you tell me a little bit about you growing up, your family, your faith? Let's start there, Kellie, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Okay. So very excited. This is so fun. For me, just typical, grew up in the church, I want to say I was 3 when my parents decided to start going like as a family. My whole life, it became everything, church Thursday night, Friday night youth group, Sunday church. My parents had worship team practice during the week, which we would go to sometimes, life group meetings, home groups, whatever during the week, and then Christian school during the day. When I think about it now, it was just every single minute of our lives. We've been out now from the church for, I don't know, maybe what's it been, like 10 years, 8 years? I don't even know. But I guess what I'm really processing is why I was such the black sheep or the Jezebel from this young age. I'm realizing as an adult, there was this disconnect with living and life and what they were telling us the Bible says to do, right? So we're in church, and I just remember being 10 years old, and there was a trans woman that came to church. And I remember she would sit in the back row, and she would wear this really beautiful dress. And I just remember always staring at her. I remember the adults saying, don't go over there and talk to her. We just were to stay away.
The untouchable?
Untouchable. She was like scary, or I remember, but this is something that's been in my head actually like a lot this past month. I remember just sitting in church and looking across and seeing her. And I had just so many thoughts, and I wasn't able to put together at that time that this isn't making sense. You're excluding her. Why? Why are you excluding her? If we're supposed to be love and loving and embracing, then why was there just this very clear difference?
Just so our audience knows, you're talking about evangelical Christian, right? That's what you grew up in? Non-denominational?
Non-denominational, yeah. Assembly of God school, Southern Baptist elementary school, and like non-denominational at home and church.
Let's talk a little bit about how you grew up in the church and your views of roles about gender and sex. But before you get into your story, I just want to share a little bit of mine, because I didn't grow up in the church. And it wasn't until my senior year in high school that I even started seriously considering whether any of that was true. My dad was men were men and women were women.
Right.
Black was black and white was white.
Right.
Man had a dress on, it was a derogatory term. I'm going to repeat it. Right. We don't use those words, but my dad did. Now, he changed before he died, and he died 10 years ago. and he changed dramatically. We didn't get to discuss transgender issues because it wasn't at the forefront of the culture war then.
Yeah.
But on other issues, he changed dramatically. I believe he would have changed on that issue too.
He would
But the
he
way I was
totally
brought up, there was no room for that. There was no room for nuance. There was no room for discussion.
Yes.
There's this like seething anger that's built up in us against people that are different because it doesn't fit our simple black white definition of the way the world works. And so
Scary.
when people want to hit or like I felt that. I felt that at times walking by which I assume now looking back were transgender people. But I know what's inside of people and I know the fear. And that's why I want to do this. I want you to help us understand what is going on here and why we don't need to be afraid. And certainly why we don't need to have those, whatever those feelings are that probably come from evolution. When we're scared and ignorant, we want to kill or fight or beat it
Yeah.
down. We need to find a way out of that. And we need your help and people like you that have taken the time to understand it to walk us through it. And I don't want to get too bogged down in the church stuff, but I think for you and then later for me, that just reaffirmed the ignorance that my dad taught me.
Yeah.
Tell me about sex and gender and your growing up in your family and in your church and your views of that.
So I grew up very traditional. Mom stayed home, dad worked. And my mom's a nurse, so she did work in and out, if money was tight or something was going on and whatever. My mom would, pick up some shifts every now and then. And then when we got a little bit older, she became a school nurse so that she could be a part of all that. My dad was very much like, I'm the knight in shining armor. I will rescue my wife, and just a lot of that kind of teaching modeled for me and everything. LGBTQ issues, it's all wrong because it's not of Jesus. So anyone who's queer or, honestly, the first time I even remember knowing what a transgender person was is when the Crying Game came out. Everybody was like, oh, this is horrifying. And I remember my parents talking about it. I remember being in the car and them talking about it. It's just this understanding all the time. These things are wrong. These things are wrong. My dad is
Why'd they tell you it was wrong? Like, was it always just because Jesus says
because
so?
God says it's wrong. Yeah. I guess my dad grew up very Catholic. He's the oldest of 7. All the boys were altar boys, and he has queer siblings. And for him, there was a lot tied into that, the religion and then his siblings who were not straight. I saw conflict growing up in that. I remember when I realized, I think my uncle is gay. And I remember asking my dad, I was like, hey, is Uncle so and so gay? And he was like, unfortunately, yeah. And I just remember being like, huh. And I remember sitting in the back of our minivan driving somewhere when I asked him, and he was saying, but we still have to love him and the Bible still says this. And I just remember thinking it just didn't make sense to me. I knew my uncle. I loved him. He was my favorite. And then to have this thought process brought in, it was put on me. I was told there was something wrong with it. It's not that I didn't believe that there was. And it wasn't until you're told this is not okay. It's so, oh, okay. So now so I believe this, right? Like it was almost like taking it on, like, okay, so we're Christians. This is what we believe. So then I believe this is wrong, but it doesn't make sense. I was always arguing about it. Then I was just difficult and whatever. But
there's a lot of that tied into it, right? You said,
yeah,
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but when you're in church environments and parents like that, they press you down. They cover you up. They don't want you to be that because they're afraid because the Bible says
such and such.
that's dangerous, whatever.
Right. And the whole just sex and sexuality and all those things tied in. It's really interesting because, my friends who were clearly queer back then, who are now out as adults, they weren't out then, but, when you're Christian kids, you're like, oh, we think he's gay. And the conversation, it's like no one really talks about it, but it's like they're not allowed to explore their own sexuality or date. They have to be straight, quote unquote, if they wanted to do whatever. But Christian kids are screwing around. We're doing all the things we're not supposed to be doing. We're upset about it. We're like, oh, we shouldn't be doing this. And we're like praying and having more devotions and, making sure we're doing all these things, but we're still allowed to make these there's just this more, there was more, I remember just thinking like, there was just a different dichotomy, straight,
I think I know what you're saying.
yeah,
You can
like,
be straight as a evangelical Christian and kinda live a fulfilled life,
but,
and
and
you might stray at times, but you can ask for forgiveness from Jesus, and you're okay.
right.
You're lesbian or gay or trans or queer or that there's no room
Automatically, there's no room,
for
like,
them to be
oh,
yourself.
no, none at all.
That disturbed you from a very young age,
Very young.
even though you couldn't articulate it.
Yes.
I mean, it's interesting because even as an adult in the Christian church,
Yeah.
it bothered me when my dad growing up as a kid, we had a gay couple next door, 2 men. They were the nicest fucking people in the world, Kelly.
Right. That's what I'm
Nicest people,
saying. It
and
made no sense.
my dad and mom forbid all 3 of us kids from talking with them, and then they literally accused them of turning our cat gay. You laugh. You knew my parents. You knew my mom. I'm not kidding, Kelly. My mom, if I had
But
her
I'm
on the
laughing
podcast,
because it makes sense. Like,
she
we know
literally
people like that.
convinced they turned my cat. The cat's name was DC, ironically. That's how I grew up. So it's like, oh, that's fearful. And then, I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, were your parents religious? They weren't, right? I know you weren't.
My
They
dad
weren't.
grew up Christian Science, and so they, no doctors, no nothing. When he was 12 or 13, I can't remember, they let him decide, and he was like, "Fuck this." And so growing up, my dad was Archie Bunker growing up. He really was. He was racist. He was such a pig on that stuff. He knows. And he learned, and he grew out of it. He learned.
From what I remember, your dad, I didn't even know him like that. So
Exactly.
that's so funny. He was just funny.
But yeah, I mean,
But
that's hard when you're a kid growing up with that, and then you're in the church, and I was always uncomfortable. Michelle knows. I mean, we were always uncomfortable, but we did like you. I mean, God says
just
it.
do it. Yeah.
I was still so uncomfortable because,
Ye
both you and I, we had a lot of gay
right,
friends
right. Well, and that's the
on
thing
their way to
that
hell, apparently.
that exactly.
So sad.
That uncomfortableness that you're talking about, that's the part that I know we're not the only ones, right? And I know, and we were still existing in these walls of the church, and we were still existing like, okay, this is wrong, this is how it is. We were not being true to ourselves. There was no, because inside there was still turmoil. We were like, this doesn't feel right. To me, I was ignoring it because I was afraid to go to hell.
Yeah, you
If
pushed it
I
down.
push it down,
Yes.
it's like this is all I know. This is what I was raised in. Okay, all the questions I had growing up, they were like, "No, you're wrong. You're wrong. It's wrong to think that way." So you get this thought of, okay, well, my natural inclination then to love or accept someone is wrong. So now you're living this, to me, I'm living this life that was not pure or true. It was not real because I was essentially pretending. When it comes down to it, I
That's
was
what Christianity is.
100%.
To me, I shouldn't
Me
say
too. Me
I
too.
can't own it for everybody, and I really love many, many Christians.
Right. Right.
However, with that said, my experience is that's what it is I have to pretend the rest of my life that I'm not who I am. Who I am is horrible. I need to repent from that.
There's so much shame. There's so much. And I know I'm emotional about it, but
Good.
wait, do you ever sit down and think back, like, when we were back there and in that, and I feel bad. First of all, I feel sad for us, right? I feel sad sometimes. I look at myself or you, and I look at us and I think like, I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. I feel like one of the first steps for me was to acknowledge, like, if we're supposed to be this beautiful creation of God, then why are we constantly fighting against it and fighting just constant shame and
Yes.
Yeah.
If we really believed in a God, I'm a little scared to use the language God because it's so loaded. I don't like the word atheist because it's framing it in terms of the religionists.
I know. I know.
Religious word, atheist. So rather than I'm a human being who is trying to live my life, and the way I do that is through looking at the evidence and making the best decisions I can. On the other hand, I have a whole group of people in the world telling me, no, here's this mythology without any evidence other than some guy supposedly said it. And then when you go look at that, it breaks down on many levels. But I can't live in that fantasy world. And that's why we're doing Beyond Fantasyland, is not to, I don't want to criticize people for their faith. I want to examine it. When I look at the trans people that I've had the pleasure of getting to know, and I look at the gay men and lesbian women, it adds such beauty to the mosaic of life.
The richness in the community and the love. And I feel so lucky. I feel so absolutely lucky to have the freedom to be a part of the LGBTQ community, because until you're like you said, until you step out and experience it and see it, you can't explain it. You cannot explain the absolute pureness of the acceptance. I've never felt it anywhere else in my life. And now, of course, all little groups and communities have their own little, infighting, but it's the core of the community is just absolute freedom. And it's so incredibly beautiful to me, moving kind of towards like LGBTQ discussions when we don't allow, especially kids, to be aware of the beauty of that community. We are absolutely robbing them of this experience to just be true, to just know who they are and exist. And yeah, I think that all this discussion about like, wait till kids are older and they shouldn't know about gay things, or,
Ugh,
and I'm just like,
that's just life. It's life.
I know. And it's so silly. It is silly because I just don't know what they're thinking, but
I don't know if being around gay people made you gay. I would be the gayest motherfucker.
okay. Exactly. Exactly.
I don't know what people are afraid of. But let's turn to Sully.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to let you
My little nugget.
tell your story. You start where you want to start.
So we have an absolutely perfect little 12-year-old son. His name is Sully. He's the funniest child that's like ever. I mean, he's just like a little 40-year-old. I mean, he's just really, really funny. He came out as transgender when he was 8, so 3rd grade, and he's been out for 4 years now. And living that life, which is it's a normal, completely normal life. The only time it's unique to any other kid is different doctor's appointments sometimes, and you have to deal with assholes more. But
We're going to get into that.
yeah.
So tell me I don't know how to ask the questions correctly,
Okay.
because it's
Yeah,
not
that's okay.
when did you first notice? Like, what did you notice? I mean,
Yeah.
obviously,
That's right, though.
I mean, there was always something.
Yes.
Obviously I was there along for the ride, and you wouldn't share everything, but you've shared something. So walk us through. You have a
Well,
beautiful baby, and
so we just laugh now because we're like, how did we not know? Like, how did we just not? I mean, the not knowing really, if we were better allies in the terms of just more aware of what even it meant to be transgender, we would have known then. When he was saying stuff when he was younger, we would have been like, oh, okay.
like what? Give us an example.
So I've never really expounded much on this because I've never really known how to talk about it. But I knew Sully was different immediately, but I didn't know what it was. And I couldn't put my finger on it. But I took a photograph. He was a year old, and I had just finished nursing him, and I was in Bolivar, and I was laying down with them, and I looked at him, and we were going to go out on the beach, and I thought, something is different here. I'm taking a picture of this right now, this moment, so I can remember this. Because I knew, and I cannot explain what it was. He was one. It was his 1 year birthday. And I remember, or the day before, and I just remember there's usually a tether between you and your kids where there's this. And we were not tethered. He was obsessed with me and, nurse 24/7 and always wanted to be with me. But there was something, I can't explain it. And
Yeah.
so, I remember telling a friend that weekend, like something, I can't put my finger on it, but there's something here that I can't identify. Anyway, there was just little signs, that people think about with trans kids. And I can't really talk about like the trans experience because I'm not trans, but I can talk about the experience as a parent.
Can I
Um,
stop you a minute? Because I think this is important. So Sully's one, you have this feeling, this intuition, and you were not, I just want the audience to know you weren't some transgender advocate at this point.
No, I
You
didn't
weren't-
even. The reason I didn't know he was trans when he was younger is because I really thought this is something that happened when you were like older.
Yeah.
I legit thought, oh, you turn 18, 19, 20, and you're like, I really thought it was dressing different.
Right.
And I had no clue. And so when I was saying like something is different here, it was not even in that ballpark. I was not like my 1 year old's trans. It was not until he was like 6.5 that I started even being like, wait a minute. But these are just some of the things that should have been obvious. And when people talk about, how do kids know that they're trans? They shouldn't know about all these kind of things. And it's not that they know they're trans. It's that my experience with my own child, and I can't speak for everyone else, but our experience was that Sully just automatically behaved in ways that were masculine in the sense that he was 2 and he was talking about Eric's beard, daddy's beard. And he was almost 3, so he could talk. And he was saying, when I'm big and have a beard like that, I'm gonna blah, blah, blah. And I just for a second was like, it was so casual and like normal. It would have been like if Jagger had said it, right? Like
Yeah.
it was just so, because if Hazel had said when I'm big and have a beard, she would have like chuckled or been like, I'm gonna grow, right? Like a girl.
Did you guys correct that? Like in my house,
I did. Yeah.
you did.
Oh, for sure. I was like, Sully, I was like,
Girls
you're
don't have
you
beards.
don't have beard. You're not gonna have a beard when you grow up.
Okay.
And he burst into tears. He looked at me like, what? And he thought I was telling him he was going to be a man who couldn't have a beard. Daddy was a man that could have a beard. He would be a man that couldn't have one. And why can't I have a beard? And I was like, because girls don't grow beards. Like it just didn't click. And he kind of moved on. Well, it was so significant for him that I think I posted it on Facebook or something. And I had a friend, she crocheted these beards and she sent these little beards for Jagger and Sully to play dress up with because Jagger was like
Oh,
7 then or something. At that time, I wasn't like, why aren't you understanding you don't have a beard? You're not going to have a beard. I was just like, oh, weird. That's weird.
yeah.
It just didn't click. So then another thing that happened kind of around the same time is my dad was massive Superman lover. And my family is like a Superman family. My dad, was everyone's Superman. And he always bought the kids a Superman outfit when they were little. So he bought Sully one and he bought Sully Supergirl.
Uh-oh.
And Sully was furious. He was so upset and he has this Supergirl dress on. And I have a photo of him and he's just sobbing. And I just was like, oh, he wanted the other one. It wasn't clicking. Now Eric and I talk about that conversation and we talk about how he didn't understand why he got a dress. It's not that he wanted the other costume. He's like, why did you buy me this one? Like it wasn't clicking in Sully's brain why he'd get the girl one because he didn't see himself that way. That was just always in the back of my mind. Like I didn't even really think much of it. And then later, when he was like 3 and 4, he used to open the door for all women and say ladies first. And we used to be like, what? You're a lady too. Why are you saying ladies first to us? They're not like big, strong indicators. And we never like even read into them or did anything. But later, those were just some things like, oh, remember he did used to do this when he was younger. But then there were times, he was 4 years old and he was like, Mom, I'm a boy. And I was like, okay, you can be whatever you want to be. And like just kept on doing what we like. It did not register for me. He loved playing with trucks. Like I just thought he was a tom girl, right? Tomboy. We did not pay attention to any of it really. And I feel bad about it in the sense that I feel like he could have come out sooner. Like I can't imagine being able to start kindergarten as yourself. I know people think like that's crazy or whatever, but being able to go into school as yourself and not transition later is just really nice. It's really nice for them. Around 6, things picked up. What they say is if they're insistent, consistent, and persistent. He wasn't that way when he was little. So I never really, we never really thought much of it. And then when he got older, it became just more insistent, consistent, and persistent.
So tell me, what did you do about that? What steps did you take? How did you explore this? I mean, between 6 and 8. Well, I guess that's happening around 6. At some point, does Sully say to you, Mom,
This is me.
Dad, this is who I am? Is that how it happened? Or was it just it happened long enough where you were like, oh, I get it?
When he first came out, it was a slow process. We just kind of started watching him in kindergarten. He has to cut his hair really short. One thing he always loved is he was obsessed with Ellen. Just with her. I mean, when he was 2 and 3, now he's like, Mom, I thought she was like a boy like me. And I said, okay, I can understand. But he was seeing those masculine traits.
Yeah.
Putting that together. And so around like 4 and 5, he wanted a haircut like Ellen. Then he ended up growing his hair real long. And it was to the middle of his back when he came out. But it was 3rd grade and he had kind of slowly just, I don't even know if I had mentioned it to Eric. I had mentioned it to my mom a few times when he was around 6. I was like, Mom, he keeps saying like every few months, I'm a boy. And she's like, what does that mean? And I'm like, I don't really know. And so, and I'm like asking him,
Your
what's
mom's
that mean?
still at that, sorry to interrupt, but your mom
Yeah.
still at that point was an evangelical Christian, right?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So, I would say mom's a seeker, so she's
Yes.
kind of been similar to us. So he had been kind of saying stuff very casual. I don't think I brought stuff up to Eric because honestly,
Your husband.
I was scared. Eric loves our children. I know more than I know anything that he loves our kids.
Yes.
He loves them and he's such a good dad. And so I wasn't afraid that he was going to not love Sully, but I was afraid that maybe he was going to be one of those men that was okay if they were queer, if they were not trans. And so I was really nervous. I was just keeping it to myself, these little things. And Sully and Eric were thick as thieves, especially when Sully was younger, just the two of them tight, so tight. So
Can I interrupt?
yeah, go on.
Because obviously I was a part of this process, processing with Eric and you at different levels. I think the audience needs to hear this. I mean, this is not easy because of the way society is. All of us
Right.
are afraid to even look at the evidence in this area. The lesbian, gay, even among a lot of Christians, they have a way of dealing with that and staying Christians. And many of my gay friends are Christians.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they figured out a way on that. But on transgender issues, it's different because our knowledge base is so limited.
Right.
Everyone's afraid.
And what we know is so skewed by warped discussion about it or movies or weird,
Yes.
just,
And so
yeah.
we're afraid. So I remember sitting with Eric and you, and this was over whether Sully, and I'm going to say this now because it's historical, but was ever going to be a man.
Yeah.
You remember?
Yeah. Kind of.
Or whether I could ever love a trans woman. But the thing is I know, and it's great. These were very healthy, but they were very honest conversations where Eric was,
Needed to. Yeah.
struggle with that. I struggle. We had great conversations about that. And so I don't want people to be afraid to, if at first you just think, oh, that's not right. But that's, your culture is saying that. we're trained that. But when you think of the individual and what they're going through and caring about these individuals, we're not talking about 1 or 5 or 8. There's like 2 million transgender persons in the United States.
Yeah.
So this isn't infrequent, but unfortunately, a lot of the transgender people have to be in certain pockets hidden away from the rest of us because we'll kill them.
Yeah. They're not safe.
They're not. And by the way, I know that sounds like hyperbole. It's not. The
It's
statistics
not.
show that. It's
Right.
so dangerous. And so this situation with Sully coming out, I'm going to say to you guys, and you, I mean, that's hard. It's hard for everybody, dad, mom, everybody, no matter how liberal and understanding they are. And that's why I love your honesty, Kelly. This situation with Eric, his Christianity and relationship to it at different time periods was different than yours. You were processing at different speeds. And so maybe we can talk a little bit about as this is happening, your relationship with Eric and how you guys process that, I think is important to discuss for parents, grandparents, siblings, and there needs to be open communication. I think your example can help us. So help us walk through that.
It was interesting because we actually really only had one real conversation like this is happening. Because I was slowly watching Sully. He was beginning to say more things. And I really think, around that age, 6, 7, and 8, they say we know our gender around 2 and 3, right? You know you're a boy, you know you're a girl around 2 or 3.
What do you mean by that? You know your gender?
Well, that's a good question. Because when you ask people to explain, how do you know you're a girl? How do you know they say genitalia. They're like, because I have a penis, I have a, vulva, vagina. And that's not what gender is. Being able to see that literally in front of my face, just the difference in Sully between the other 2 kids, just seeing it's so clear he was not a girl, it is so clear in the way that he just naturally assumed he was a boy. And then started to realize, wait, maybe I'm not. And then around 6 and 7 was like, no, I'm a boy. Mom and dad, I'm a boy. And I used to be like, whatever you want to be, babe, you could do it. Because also at the time, I was not afraid of him being transgender. I was never afraid of that. But I was, afraid to put any thoughts in his mind. I had this misbelief that I could sway him either way, which is so ridiculous.
Any parent knows that.
Right, exactly. And what child is gonna be like, okay, I'll pretend to be the opposite gender? They're not going to be able to maintain that.
No.
Anyway, so there was that. And so like around 6 and 7, he's slowly kind of starting to say things, and I'm starting to come to the realization, oh, I should probably read about transgender children. The only thing I knew was some 2020 or Dateline episode with Jazz Jennings from the early 2000s. I think Eric and I were like married 6 months maybe. And I remember watching that and seeing her family just completely embrace her. And it was done so well that I remember being like, oh yeah, that's a little girl. Like I never was like, oh, that's wrong or that's weird or they shouldn't do that. I was like, oh, that's a little girl. It is very clear that that's a little girl. And so when he kind of slowly started doing his stuff, I said, okay. And then one day he said, Mom, I want to cut my hair again. Him and I had gone to Spain first for soccer. We had gone to Spain for him to play soccer for a little bit. And
did he play soccer on a girls team or a boys team or a mixed team?
Mixed team, co-ed. Yeah. The way he played for Barcelona Academy, and I love it. The way they do it is they combine them all, which is really great. So he was playing over there, and we were walking back one night to our little apartment, and in the middle of the road was a big pride flag. And he's like, I want to lay down on that flag. This is my flag. And I was like, okay, I don't know what that means, but all right. Cause he was 7. So I was like, okay. And I remember just taking a picture of it. And later he was like, this is such a special picture, right? And I didn't understand. And he was like, yeah, I'm not gay or whatever. So I just didn't get it then. But he was starting to understand kind of then, okay, I am different. I'm different. And we came home, and a few months after that, and his hair was middle of his back at that time. And he said, Mom, I really want to cut my hair off. And I said, okay, babe. So we went to get his hair cut. And I remember being in the salon. This is the only moment that I had I don't even know how to put words to it, but it was, okay, once this happens, there's no going back. I knew he hadn't come out and he hadn't really said much, but I knew that now, like that's where we were headed. And I thought, okay, this is going to be a new thing for my baby. And I remember I excused myself to go to the bathroom and I cried for a second. And I wasn't crying out of like grief or I never cried out of grief. There's a lot of parents whose kids come out and they are like, I'm grieving my child and I'm sad. And I never felt any of that. I felt like anxiety and fear. And I panicked about that for a little while from everyone else. But I just remember I was like, okay, he's going to cut this hair off and this is it. He's going to come out soon. Like I just knew he was going to come out soon. And he did. He cut it off. And a couple days later, he said, I think I might be non-binary. And I said, well, okay, well, what does that mean to you? And he said, I just don't really feel like I'm a girl, Mom. I feel like I'm a boy, but I know also I'm a girl. And I said, okay, well, let's talk to someone, So we talked to the pediatrician and we got him a therapist that specializes in gender issues. And then we sent him to summer camp with a bunch of trans kids because we were like, if he's trans, he's going to know once he gets to camp. And if he's trans, he'll find out what that looks like. So we sent him off to camp and he just did a week at that time. And I remember picking him up from the airport. He did two things. He took my hand when we were walking from the gate and he just whispered real quiet. He said, Mom, I got to take my shirt off and swim the whole time. And that was, he looked like he had 1,000 light bulbs in his body. I can't even explain. I had never seen him like that. And then we got in the car and we were driving home. It was just him and I, and I was asking him questions, but I could tell like I didn't want to pull things out of him. He'd been gone and I just wanted to be sensitive to the experience and wait for him to kind of tell me. And it was quiet for a second. And then he said, Mom, I need to tell you something. And I said, okay. And he said, I'm a boy. And I said, that makes a lot of sense to me. I said, I've kind of been waiting for that one. I said, I finally feel like I see your face. I see you. Wow. And he said, Mom, it feels so good. And that was it. And so
that beautiful boy,
I know. And so he came home. We told Eric, and Eric didn't skip a beat. He just said, oh, my boy. And he picked him up, just kind of like threw him around and told Jagger and Hazel. And those two never skipped a beat, ever. Ever.
The audience knows Eric's like a mountain of a man. He's like giant beard. This is
dresses in all black, Mr. Johnny Cash.
Anyways, your pediatrician. Let's walk through the process because I think this is important for people and parents to understand. You just we went there, and it seems so easy, and it can't be that easy. So you guys started with your pediatrician. Was that helpful? Did they get you? Tell me about that. Was it because a lot of people don't know?
So that part's actually, I kind of chuckle about it. I remember going in to see her after he had cut his hair, and I was going to talk to her about it. Like, hey, do you have any referrals or do you know anyone we should talk to? And she immediately, like Sully jumped up on the table and she looked at him and she said, so what's going on here? Are we still? And like, she didn't come out, but she knew. And it was just really funny. And I said, yes, Sully has come out. So what she does for us is she just, on this end, she just provides support as far as being a doctor who is respectful to him, right? She doesn't manage any of his treatment as far as being trans, but she makes sure the office uses the pronouns. And so she's just basically modeling, this is real, this is true, you are seen in our office. And then his gender specialist, we found someone who specializes in transgender boys. So he saw him for about 3 years. And then he's like, he doesn't need to see me anymore. For a while, he's like, I don't know why you guys are still coming. But Sully just liked him so much.
How do you find that therapist?
It was either Google or it might have been through like Equality Loudon, our local equality group. It's another avenue, just trying to find resources anywhere you can.
Yeah.
But it also might have been Google.
Really, a lot of this is where do you turn? It seems like you had to do it all from whole cloth.
That's the part that was hard, like fighting it with insurance companies. So after the gender specialist,
Not medicine, not a psychiatrist, but
right,
okay,
right. So this was just therapist specializes in gender for little kids.
okay,
And specifically trans boys. So like he knows he's just like Sully's a boy. Like he said, I have clients all the time. For some kids, it's a journey and it's a process. And he's like, Sully's just so solid. So yeah, he saw him for a few years, and then he's like, yeah, you don't need to see him anymore. But then the other a person you do need to see is if your child is going to be on any kind of blocker or hormone, you need to find an endocrinologist that treats trans kids. And that's the hard part, trying to find somebody who does that. So we've got two really good hospitals here, though. We have Children's National, and then we have VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond. And that's where we ended up going. We went down there because the doctor down there, I felt, had a longer track record, had been treating kids for so long, and easier.
Can you walk us through that? Walk us through that decision to, well, tell us. I don't know how the blockers work and all that, and I know you do. So can you tell
Yeah.
us about the decision? I know obviously in the culture war right now, there's big fights over when and weight, and I happen to have somebody very close to me right now who has a daughter that maybe is a boy, maybe would be the right words, but wants to be a boy, has said they want to be a boy, but since they're very young, the parents aren't going to let them decide till they're 18 and make them live that way. Yeah.
Like, is like an arrow in my heart.
No, but to me, it's education. It's like, I love these people. You would love them. I promise you. And it's
Yeah.
so hard, these decisions, which is one of the big reasons I want to do this. So can you walk through the decisions you made, kind of the struggle, the discussions you and Eric and the doctors had, all that stuff?
Yeah. So what Sully decided, some of the things I won't talk about because some of it's, medically private and stuff,
Cool.
but one of the things that is very hard for trans kids is going through puberty. And when your body is starting to exhibit signs that you're turning into what you are not, it's very destabilizing. And, we know the rate of death by suicide for trans kids is excruciatingly high. So we met with part of the reason Sully was with his gender specialist was because of, some body issues. And we met with the endocrinologist, and you meet a couple times. He had the endocrinologist, he wants all your child's information first. So like before you even meet, he's got your kids' records from when they were little. He has already talked to if your child has a therapist, him and the therapist have already spoken. He has spoken with your pediatrician already. He really takes the time to make sure their team is cohesive, communicative, everyone is in agreement on things, and then, also includes mom and dad. So we decided that we wanted to talk to him about hormone blocker being an option for Sully. Sully really, really, really wanted one. So we did. We went in and talked with him. Sully was 10 when he got it. He was 10. And he will have it until he starts testosterone. And it's been life-saving. It has been huge. There are some struggles with, the kids in his class. The boys in his class are maturing. They're going through puberty, and he's not, because going through two puberty is bad enough, right? And
Yeah.
then have to go through it again at 18 when you go, okay, now you're allowed to be trans. Now this costly surgeries and the thought of that for him, the thought of making him go through puberty now and then go through, it doesn't process in my brain why I would do that to him. So his endocrinologist, after speaking together, after speaking with everyone else, agreed that it would be beneficial for him and life-saving for him. And one thing that was very significant for him, why he agreed to do it, is Sully had a history of saying he was a boy since he was 2 years old. He said, I've treated so many kids, and the kids who come out when they're that age or saying things when they're that age. He said, I am so solid on giving them blockers because they've never wavered. They're always, the same. I'm not like, you might need a little more therapy or let's explore this some more. Or, he said he just has some patients that it's just, they know. With Sully's history and everything, he get blood work done. They check all your hormone levels. And then a month later, we went to the hospital and he had his little blocker put in. And it's like an outpatient little surgery. It's just a tiny little sliver of hormone and it goes right under your skin.
Huh.
And yeah, that's it. And then it will come out and he decides either I'm going to continue with my transition or, wow, I'm really not a boy. I am a girl. Whenever that gets taken out, that's the next step. And so the blocker just gives him time to, wait, which we're like, okay, like I'm annoyed that we have to wait. I'm annoyed. I'm like, why can't we just start testosterone now? And you can't. Of course, I understand why. But when your child is so clearly
right.
a
But
boy,
you guys decided to follow the science.
yes, all the guidelines. So we're following the guidelines.
Good.
And I've learned so much too about blockers and testosterone. I didn't know, there's all this discussion like these things are so dangerous for kids and they shouldn't be on them. And I'm like, we've been giving blockers to kids with precocious puberty for decades, at, 5 and 6 years old, they're allowed to take them, but for their medical issue, but my kid's not allowed to take them for their medical issue.
Right. That's the fantasy land.
Right.
Is literally what religion does. It allows you to take these diametrically opposed positions.
Right.
And completely for inconsistent reasons and be totally fine with it in your mind.
I know. They make no sense.
Remarkable to me. And they'll use the same argument. Well, that's different. Well, how's it different? Well, because God says men are men and women are women. That's why.
I know.
It really is. By the way, let me throw out a book. I don't know if you've read it. It's called Bitch. And sorry, it's a little provocative, yes, but the reason it's such a great book, it's by a lady named Lucy Cook. She's this English scientist and journalist, and she's phenomenal. But the reason I brought that up is because we can't get into all the science when you're saying, human development and embryonic development, all that stuff is so complex. And it's not the way it works scientifically. I can't take the time to explain it. I'm not a scientist, but I do recommend that book because it looks at the animal kingdom and it sets the scientific background for all this stuff that you're actually applying in Sully's case.
Yeah.
The science does have the answer to this, along with the parents, obviously. We do have examples of other conditions where we've used medication to manage to let the person have the life that they want to have.
Yeah.
Healthy life.
Healthy life. It's just, what is let it be. What's your problem, man?
I do not know. Can we talk a little bit about vocabulary?
Yeah.
We need to be comfortable to be able to ask the questions, all this stuff. So let's just have an open discussion about it.
Yeah, because until you don't know. And the truth is, as long as someone's heart is coming from the right place and people, they know when your heart's coming from the right place. So talking about those kind of things is important.
What do we do? I mean, I see Sully. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know if Sully's, I don't know what to do. What do I do, Kelly?
I would just ask him, hey, what are your pronouns?
Yeah.
And if
so
you feel
easy too.
It's so easy. And so here's something that Eric had said. He's like, I kind of feel uncomfortable. Is it rude of me to ask something like, hey, what are your pronouns? That felt uncomfortable. And I said, I can understand that. I said, so what I do is I introduce myself with my pronouns then. I'll say, hey, I'm, and these are my pronouns. What are yours? Just to make it feel a little more comfortable.
It just makes life easier that way. Nobody has to ask me. Listen, I just ask people now. I'll be like, or I just take a chance because if I think I'll use she, if it looks like a she, because that's kind of, my daughter taught me that. It's like, well, what they're presenting is what they're presenting, and that's subjective.
Right.
You're going to see it, and if you make a mistake, they'll correct you.
Exactly. It's not. I think there's more worry around misgendering someone than is necessary, in the sense that people do misgender, but it feels like it's on purpose, or it's, I'm not going to do what you've asked me to. That's when it's an issue. If my experience, I cannot speak for trans people because I am not trans, but with my friends and with my son, right? Your attitude matters. And if you make a mistake, correct it and quickly move on too. Don't apologize. Don't be like, oh, I'm so sorry. Because then you're also putting it back on the trans person to be like, oh, it's okay. Or just, hey, I'm sorry. Correct yourself and keep going, right? Just doesn't even need to be a thing.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
And then there's okay, so let's just talk through this. So you talked about the solely sex at birth
Female.
was female. And
Fine.
so because of the sexual anatomy that she was born with, right?
Yeah. Hey,
So we're that he was born with. Sorry about
you
that.
got it. No.
That he was born with. And then the gender is how we feel, right? It's
Yeah.
inside knowledge of ourselves that
It's a knowing. What I have noticed, because I can't really just when I've been like, how do I describe that I'm a woman? I just know that I'm a woman. I don't know how to, other than my body does match the cisgender definition is. But and then after also watching Sully, I've come to know and understand gender is our essence of who we are. I know that that sounds so like woo woo and out there because it feels like it should be so concrete, but it just like is this knowing. I don't know how to else to.
and the reality is I'm going to use round numbers. About 1.5 to 2% are intersex. For the rest of the 98% people, about 90% of them, their gender identity matches their sex. We're talking about the other, 8%, 10%. But then it gets more complicated because I could be, and I'll just use myself as an example. I'm born with a penis, so sex at birth male. I identify as a male, but then my gender expression might be different than the way I feel.
Yeah.
I might want to wear dresses and lipstick and long hair and whatever if I feel like that's how I feel. I'm not saying that's the only way ladies can dress, but the expression then is something altogether different, which
Okay.
as I learned this, I didn't understand and I made a lot of mistakes on it.
I didn't either. And really, when Sully first came out, he was still very femme. And that's what helped me understand it. I was like, this is so confusing to me right now. I got it. I know, I accept it. I accept you. I know this is not making sense for what I thought it was. So I was like, okay, you're a boy. Why are you wearing a skirt right now? And he's like, I just want to wear a skirt today. And he's like, boys do like to wear dresses. And I was like, oh yeah, my nephew likes to wear dresses. My nephew's a teenage boy and loves, dresses and gets dressed up. And Sully's like, I'm a boy who likes to wear a dress sometimes. And I thought, okay. And now he's kind of moved out of that. I said to him, it's been 4 years now. And I said to him the other day, I said, are you still like into kind of that scene? He's like, no, he's like, I'm kind of out of that like anime. So it's just like this little,
Yeah.
it was expressive. It was just this style and expression that he was into. And that helped me understand that sex and gender expression are all different things.
Yeah. I love it. I love it among Gen Z in particular. They're
Oh, I know. They're so great.
style is style.
Yeah.
And styles change. And what's his name? The One Direction guy that's so good, Styles, Harry Styles.
Yeah.
Love it. He wears it. He'll wear the skirt and just people go nuts. It's like, but
Well, and the thing that's so interesting for me with this too is it's led me to understand my own attraction with men and their gender expression. I love a man in a dress. I love it. And I didn't realize that I was actually very attracted to it until all this stuff with Sully. That's the other part of this gift of like Sully coming out and our whole family like deconstructing what gender is. It's just been really beautiful. It's just a really cool part of it.
yeah, it's funny. Like over the years, you had Kurt Cobain wearing a dress,
Yeah. Yeah.
Dennis Rodman, and
Mhm.
I don't know why we can't have room for people to express themselves without
Yeah.
worrying
Because,
who they're having. You know, it's
yeah.
fascinating to me how it develops. Okay, well, tell me what you're doing right now because there's a big fight. I mean, you have to fight for your child every day, and I know it. And so you have to fight for the minority. So how are you dealing with that? Tell me how you dealt with it with your family. Let's start with your family, your broader family. Like, Sully came out, and how's that all that worked with your family, grandparents, all that?
Whew. So being super religious on both sides of our family, that's the tension when he came out. That's where people would see me getting upset or the tears or that there was when he came out, it was beautiful in our home. right? In our little house, it was just perfect, our little safe space. And we celebrated and we loved it. But then I could walk into my bedroom and shut the door and know that the chaos that was going to be, the chaos we were going to be met with. You know, what they say, when your child comes out, the whole family comes out. And it's true.
Yeah.
And so, and it's beautiful, and I'm proud to come out with him. And then that part, I'm proud to draw these lines in the sand to say, you know, if there's anything that I can teach my children, it's that we have their back. We have their back. We love them. We support them. I just, if that's the
Yeah.
one message they get, right?
About how you have their back. So your mom was probably pretty easy because your mom's your mom.
Mom was easy. Mom was easy.
But her parents are still alive, right?
Yes.
And they are very fundamentalist Christian, as I recall.
Yes.
How does it go with them? Walk us, like, did you
So they,
tell them how'd all this work?
so I told my mom, I had been kind of dropping little hints, like, well, because Sully was dropping the hints. So she kind of knew it was coming. I feel like we told I think I just sent a group text to my side of the family, like my brothers and my mom, like, this is happening. These are the pronouns. We could talk more when we get together. And my whole family was like, all right, we're on it. And of course, there was more like in-depth conversations when we got together. And the reality is, each one of my family members sat down with Sully and talked to him about himself and how he feels. And
You mean your
'cause that's
your
my
brother?
brothers and my mom and JD, and because that's just how they work. You know, they're my family's so, we want to talk and know. You know, we don't want to just be told and do it. You know, we want that relationship anyway. But, I could not tell my grandparents. I
Yeah.
didn't feel strong enough to do it, and I didn't feel strong enough because I felt too raw. I knew it wasn't gonna be received well, and I was the black sheep of the grandkids. You know, Kelly's always questioning, making problems.
Mhm.
And so there's still a rawness there for that, right? There's still that shame of something's wrong with me because I am, right? So my fear of if I sat with them and told them about Sully and they were going to say something negative about him, I was afraid I would react out of my own shame. And I just didn't want it to be, just didn't want to feel shame. And I also didn't want to hurt my grandparents. Because I love them so incredibly much. And I'm hurt. I'm hurt by how they choose to love people because it's not loving. My mom and her partner, and then my aunt and her husband sat my grandparents down and told them. And they were upset at first. And honest, it was actually JD, my mom's boyfriend, who was the one that really kind of helped them because they were saying, no, this is wrong, and this isn't okay. And he just teared up and started crying. And he said, this is all new to me. And he said, but if you could see him now from when he came out, he said, there's no doubt in my mind that this is real. And and I just love him, and I can't not acknowledge that. And my mom said when he said that, my grandparents kind of, something changed. They didn't say it's okay, but there was a shift for them. So that part's good. I did go visit.
Sully's pronouns and, like,
No. Well, they actually just avoid them. I did go visit them recently, and they took all the photos down of him in their house, which I could talk to them about it because it could be because it was before he came out. I don't know about that. They ask about him all the time, but they just say, how are the kids? And, so I just continue to say he and use the right pronouns. And we just talk about him all the time. And
Kelly, do you wanna take this opportunity to your grandparents right now?
no,
Why not?
because I don't think I'm at that place. I have too much pain, I think.
Yeah.
I just have, because I have the pain that I never dealt with from my own. My grandfather said to me once when I got a tattoo, my first tattoo, he said, I've never met anyone who got a tattoo who didn't walk away from the Lord. And I know that that's ridiculous, but also it's those little things of always never measuring up there with now bringing Sully into that, it's so raw for me still really raw. I actually didn't talk to them for about 2 years. I didn't talk to them until recently. I went to see them because I just couldn't do it. I could not. I can face most things, but that one was
There's a lot, the religion.
a lot. It's the religion
Yeah, it's wrapped up in them as your
it's all
grandparents.
that, you know. Yeah,
Well,
it's
I love the way, let me restate what I think you said is basically they're trying to love, but it's not hidden. They're not bad people. They're people who are living in fantasy land. And people keep asking me, well, what's fantasy land? Fantasy land is like you're basing your reality on this mythology.
right.
It's like, wait a minute, you have right in front of you this human being who's telling you what they're experiencing, how they're feeling, and you're refusing to believe their testimony because some God you've never seen and some men that you've never met thousands of years ago, we say they wrote down these things.
Right.
This human being
That you supposedly love.
that you're supposed to love. But that's what Fantasyland does. It gets us to, we know, I guarantee your grandparents know that. They have the capacity to fully love Sully as Sully is.
To me, it's fear. It's that religion. It's just,
Exactly. It's
yeah.
religion has them bound up. And so what we want to do is just continue to educate and give them an opportunity. So, I mean, I don't think it's your responsibility to convince them. I don't think it's mine. They are adults and they get to believe what they want to believe. And if they want to choose to continue to live in Fantasyland, you know what they're missing? Reality.
Right.
Of Sully's life, of Sully's beautiful development, and the story that goes with it, your whole family, they're going to miss out and they're going to get a little slice of it. And that's all they can handle right now.
Yeah. It's sad and it's beautiful in the sense that you learn a lot about people and you learn to let go too. It's been really good for Eric and I to learn to allow people to, you get to have that belief. And guess what? We get to stay over here then.
Yes.
And it's really sad. He had to tell his parents we weren't coming back if something didn't change.
Because explain a little bit because people don't know about his parents. They're also
One and the most loving. Oh my God. And so we have a thing in our marriage where with my parents, you deal with yours. If my mom needs to learn about this transgender stuff, I'll help my mom. Your parents will receive this better from you. You help your parents. So I dealt with mine. He talked with his, and I think his parents are just uncomfortable. So while they're willing and they love him so much, they have really, really struggled with the pronoun. They've gotten the name down. The name they've gotten down, but it's been 4 years and they were still misgendering him 2 weeks ago when we were visiting. And I looked at him, I said, babe, it's been 4 years. And he said, I'll sit them down. And he did. He sat them down and he said, I don't want to have to say this. This is so painful for me to have to say. But I asked Sully once what the worst thing someone could do to him was. And he said, it's misgender me, Dad. When people misgender me, I can't tell you what that makes me feel like. And he said, Mom and Dad, when he told me that, he said, made it a goal in my life that as far as the people in my life were concerned, they would gender him appropriately. I would not put him around people who weren't doing that. And he's like, we're not going to be able to come back here if this doesn't begin to change. It has to change. And his mom, like that, she got it. She just nailed it. And she started correcting his dad and was getting on his dad. And then they went out with her sister, and her sister was misgendering Sully like crazy. And Eric's mom kept correcting her. And the sister was not having it, kept giving dirty look.
Oh my God.
Oh, yeah. And I was so proud of his mom. I was so proud of her because they are non-confrontational. I knew that it was big for her to take this public stand in her family. And I told her after, the next day, I said, I noticed that. I want you to know I noticed it. You did so good. I am so proud of you. You should feel really proud. And to go back to the families, my family kind of jumped on. We've had some issues with some extended people, but the people closest that we keep close to him have all been on board. I'm curious, if my dad was alive, how that would have gone. He would have been great and he would have loved him and embraced him, but it would have been a lot of talking.
Well, that's why we're doing this.
Yeah.
The problem is we have thousands of years of human history with isolating and abusing people and then not talking about it. And now we can do this. We have the internet. We have information. Kids know there can be safe places for them. I mean, there's young people like my kids out there that are safe allies. So let's have the discussion. Let's continue to talk about it, it makes people uncomfortable, but they need to be uncomfortable. And by the way, I remember the reason I care so much about getting the pronouns right is because at some point I realized that I'm like gaslighting people if I'm doing it on purpose.
Yes.
It's the ultimate because I'm telling them, you're fucked up in your head. I know what's right. You're crazy.
And they hear that all the time.
Hey, even though you tell me he, I'm going to keep saying she because I know better than you know.
Yeah, it is. It's like the utmost cruelty then. Like, it's just,
Kill themselves.
yeah.
I mean, it is. You talked about death by suicide. The rates are alarming. And it's not because they have some biological condition going on. It's because we're treating them like crap, like
Right.
they're worthless.
Right.
And they have no hope. And so the reason we're treating them like that, I think, is ignorant.
Yeah.
And that's why Beyond Fantasyland, we're just trying to sort this out. Let's talk about the real evidence and listen to the testimony of these people that are right in front of us instead of believing some really difficult, ambiguous words from 2,000 years ago. To me, that's what it comes down to. Okay, what about friends? Because I'm guessing you've lost friends and acquaintances and gained friends and acquaintances.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
So if I've lost any friends, they've quietly walked away and I haven't noticed for the most part because, oh, no, I take it back. No, I actually removed some friends from my life. I actually forgot about that. And they were like, yeah, we know you love him, but we just don't agree. And I was just like, "Pink." Yeah, I used to get into like discussion and like, let me try to talk them in, convince them. I don't do any of that anymore. There's no room for that in my life because it's so absurd. There's so much evidence out there that validates this experience that to say this is not real it's on purpose. Then you're being hurtful on purpose. You're choosing to see this very real issue, situation, whatever, and say, yeah, I'm choosing to only believe this. I have no room for that in my life. And that's a really great place to finally be in because.
So you drew the boundaries to protect.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, it makes sense. I've done the same thing. I can't sit there and debate and argue with you
Can't do it anymore.
because if we're going to talk about facts and evidence, I'll debate and argue all day. But that's
Right.
if you're going to just keep making shit up,
I know. I'm just putting myself in like a situation where I'm increasing my own anxiety because I'm dialoguing about something that's not even legitimate because the person is not having an honest conversation. So I'm not going to waste my time anymore.
let's talk about school a little bit. The school, uh, the reception to coming out at school, and then you've had issues with the school board, with teachers, pronouns, and even I don't know how much you want to talk about the lawsuit that got filed with you and others, but I'm happy to talk about all that. What would you like to share about your experiences at school, particularly in Loudoun County?
For us, I feel like Sully is actually pretty lucky. I definitely thought it was going to be worse than it has been. And I'm really grateful. Truth is, people are good. In my belief is people are more good than they are bad. And the truth is, the support he has here has been incredible. So because of where we live, he went to a really small little rural school. Each classroom had their own little bathroom. And so when he came out in third grade, the one thing that was really great is his teacher, her twin brother is a trans man. So first of all, what a gift to be able to come out, and be in this classroom where his teacher gets it, already knows. And then, so she really advocated for him. Like Sully was already using the boys' bathroom before he came out in school. Like he had already in restaurants and stuff started using the boys' bathroom. So I was like, are you going to start using the boys' bathroom in school? He's like, yeah. Like he didn't even he was like, yeah, well, of course, I'm a boy. I'm not going to go in the girls' bathroom now. He's like, I'm telling everyone. And I was like, all right. And the boys' bathrooms there, because the school's so small, were just like a stall and a urinal. So what they did was they just made all the bathrooms all gender. So only one person went in at a time anyway to these little bathrooms. So it just never even was an issue in elementary school for him. So he got to come out, and then his little school made it so that it was awesome for him. Anytime anything popped up on the screen at school with his dead name, his teacher would throw a sticky note over it with his new name. He just had a really, really great experience in elementary school. And I was nervous because then when he was going into middle school, that's when Loudoun County was deciding to pass a policy, 80/40, that was going to protect LGBTQ kids and, trans kids in school, which means Sully gets to use the bathroom that he wants to use. The teachers need to be using his pronouns, just basic human rights is
Yeah.
what that was. There was a big, huge brouhaha here. And really, ultimately, it really broke down to just politics and Trump and they're trying to get these really conservative people in these school board positions, and because they're, trying to bring prayer back into school. And that little tiny group created this chaos here. And they still are. It's really fizzled out and died down a lot, but there's still a good handful of them trying to still get things changed. And we've had CPS called on us because we're letting our kid be trans, and like kids that Sully grew up with won't play with him anymore. And not all of them, just a couple, for the most part, his group is solid. But yeah, the school system here, having all these meetings and just people screaming and yelling at each other was really horrifying.
That was hard. I mean, you ended up on national TV.
Yeah. Oh, Eric and I were laying in bed the other night watching. There's this one group that made videos of me speaking. They put them on YouTube, and everyone's just talking shit through the whole thing. Look at her. Look at her. She's horrible. And we're dying. We're dying reading them because they're so mad.
And Eric, when he got up and spoke, he gave a beautiful, really Christian defense
Yeah.
of the transgender community. I thought it was great. Although I don't share his Christian faith any longer, I just thought, man, this is at least somebody who's trying to think and use some evidence to end up in a healthy place. And I'm torn. I'm torn over whether there's a place for religion in society. I mean, and I know I probably have a weird perspective, having started secular, senior in high school, becoming a Christian, obviously becoming a pastor, studying, and then leaving. So I see a lot of the dangers from the inside out of religion. However, that said, I think the world we're in, I don't think religion's going to end anytime soon. So what I'm going to advocate is healthy religion that it does not disrupt the well-being of others. And in this case, I think Christians can come to one or two places. One is, say, I have room in my liberal Christian view of the scriptures to allow for the transgender community. The other one is they could just be like, I disagree with this. However, my Christian faith tells me to respect and love and care for all people. And so I'm going to respect and use their pronouns and such, even though I disagree with it.
Right.
So that's where I'm at right now, is like, let's educate. And then I'm not going to tell people to leave Christianity so that they can be a good human being to the transgender community. I'm going to say, figure out a way to be a good human being to the transgender community.
Right. Exactly. Just figure it out.
Come on. Listen, all this is so helpful and digging up, obviously painful times for you and your family. But I just feel this story's not over. The journey's not over with Sully. It's not over with you and Eric and your family. But I think we need to continue. I'm glad you found a place where you can live without having to try to convince others. But I'm glad you're taking the time to talk to me about this and get this out there so people can know. We haven't even started to talk about what's happening in Texas and other states where you have the right, at least right now, you have the right to get medical care for Sully. Some states, parents don't have a choice, and the child doesn't have a choice right now.
Yeah. Sully's endocrinologist said one of his dearest friends is a endo in Texas. And he said he's like, it's awful right now. And he said, he's like, I'm very concerned. There are some bills coming up here in Virginia that I am concerned we could be headed that way. He said, right now we're okay, but we need to be concerned. So, and we're fighting, we're doing it. We're out there all the time.
Let me ask you, I want to cover one more topic related to Sully's decision to get medication. And then I'm just going to end with a few fun questions.
Okay.
You said Sully decided. And so I'm like, okay, what do we allow? These are really important decisions.
Good question. Yeah.
And what do we allow kids to decide at a young age that's going to be life altering? I just want to talk this through. I have come to agree with you and Eric on this issue. If you don't start and you wait till you're 18 or 20 or whatever, like you said,
you got to start over. Yeah.
Why does Sully get to decide? Why does a kid get to decide? And why don't the parents get to decide, or why shouldn't we wait till 18?
So, I mean, ultimately, I guess we do decide. Eric and I really are the decision makers. The doctor's not going to put a blocker in him if we say no. We are. When I say Sully decided, I mean more more, some trans kids don't want them. Some trans people don't want hormones. They don't want surgery. They don't need a blocker. Every trans person is so different and everyone's going to have a, different experience. So our experience with Sully is that it was necessary, without putting things out there that probably he'd want to keep private. It just was necessary for him, for his mental health.
You said earlier, Kelly, you were afraid to put thoughts in his head.
I was terrified. I was absolutely afraid. I think I was afraid that people were going to be like, you made your kid trans, or I was going to influence him in some way. I wanted every part of what he was saying to be from him. I really didn't want down the road him to be like, this isn't me. Why did, I was afraid. You read things where people are like, well, what if they change their mind and you force them to do that? And I'm like, but it's because I didn't know. Also, I just didn't know. I wasn't educated. If I knew then what I know now, I wouldn't have even been afraid of putting thoughts in his mind. I would have known that I couldn't.
And hopefully, if this helps one or two people, the process you followed, it seems like such a healthy process. Is you obviously talk to your child and you
Yeah.
talk to each other a lot. And then you went to a pediatrician and you went to a counselor and you didn't just immediately make decisions. And then ultimately, though, I do think it's Sully's. I really respect you guys for listening to your child. Let me just say that. So that's why I say it's Sully's ultimate decision, because if Sully said no, you wouldn't have done it.
Right. Right. Yeah.
If the doctor said no or therapist said no, any step of the way, you guys are there to support Sully, not to support a predetermined decision.
Right. That's what it was. It's just what is the best for you? What makes you the happiest, healthiest human on this planet so that you thrive and that what you put out there is also a gift to other people. And he can't be a good steward to other people on this earth if he's miserable and hates himself. There are those kind of decisions they should be making. I can't put Sully on a hormone or on a blocker. And
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just maybe it was really easy for us because I had watched this, what felt very natural transition from 2 and 3 when he was saying things that I was like, when he was younger, it didn't make sense. But because it was consistent, as he was getting older, I was like, oh, okay, this does make sense. I can see why you want that blocker. I can see why when the doctor says you can start testosterone, why you feel that you will start that. And
I don't know the answer to this. I wish I would have asked it before. I probably should have asked it before we started recording this, but I'm assuming you are that you have Sully's permission to talk about all this.
yes, yes. Really, the understanding part of the trans stuff with Sully is a lot of the stuff I can't share, but I just feel like I can't say that. So
You up for a few fun questions?
yeah.
All right. So what band or album has influenced you the most?
So funny because I was thinking about it and I kept coming back to my dad actually was such being a musician. I learned so much from him about music. And if really it came down to it would be the Beatles, probably, just my childhood is really like the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, Steely Dan.
Bruce.
Yeah, no, never Bruce.
I know you're from New
So
Jersey.
funny. It makes no sense. And it's
That
funny.
just so the audience knows, they probably already know, like, that's my guy, right, Bruce?
Yeah. Well, and it's funny. I enjoy Bruce now.
Yeah.
Oh, and it's weird. Like, I don't know what it was. I do think my dad, it's just really because my dad tried out for his band and he didn't make it. And I think he's like always carried a little like,
He sucks.
yeah, exactly.
Well, what are you listening to now? Because you changed my life years ago. You sent me the first Mumford song I had ever heard, and you were like, "Kent, you're gonna love this." You have to
Oh,
listen to this Mumford."
that's so awesome.
It was you, yeah. And I was like, "Oh my!" And it was crazy. Then I sent to Michelle, and she goes, "That's the band I saw on Late Night. I was trying to remember to tell you about."
That's so awesome. It's so funny because that album, I was newly pregnant with Sully with that album, and I had such bad morning sickness. but I listened to it so much that now when I hear that album, I get nauseous. Every time I hear a song from it, I'm like, "No, here it comes." And it's just this connection. It's so funny. Oh, I
That's
love that.
great. What are you
Um,
listening to right now?
I
Tell me what you're
think
listening to right now. I know you got good stuff that I don't know about.
I mean, I'm listening to a lot of stuff the kids are bringing home right now, which is a lot of Mitski. We're listening to, like, old stuff, though, right now, like
Okay.
Sarah Jaffe, Brandy Carlisle, of course,
Oh,
and Billie Holiday. I've been playing her a lot at night. The kids
that's
I
great.
'cause I haven't played enough, like, old jazz, and I realized I haven't played it enough in my house. My brothers play it a lot, but I don't play it a lot, so I've just been trying to play a little bit more of that, and
I know you like to stream like I do, so what are you guys watching? What should I be watching?
um so right now I'm watching, Bad Sisters, which is
Okay.
on Apple TV. We definitely Eric might be upset that I'm gonna expose us on this, but we, watch 90 Day Fiancé together every Sunday. We don't let the kids come in, and we talk shit for 2 hours while we watch it, and it is our favorite 2 hours of the week, and we're just like, "Why are they picking this person?" And
Oh,
yeah, I
that's the perfect place to end right there.
yeah,
I
there
mean, how
you
do we
go.
beat that? Okay, but if you haven't seen Fleabag, speaking of British
Oh,
comedy,
Fleabag
I
is my
love
yeah,
Fleabag. Oh, you watch,
love
of course.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's another one though that I feel like I never remember their names. Oh, have you guys watched Trying? Trying is really good.
I haven't heard of
That's on Apple TV. You guys have Apple
it.
TV?
Yes.
Yeah. So try that one too. There's 3 seasons of it and they're quick. And
Okay.
it's so cute and cozy and it's just this little couple and they're in love and you'll love it. It's British dramedy. So
Dramedy. Yep. Well, Kelly, man, I owe you. This is so awesome.
I love you guys.
I wish I could give you a
The
big.
best. I know. Well, it's funny because this is literally just like a conversation we would have had anyway.
I
So
know. It's all learning. I continue to learn, and I love life. I love life so much now. I wish so many of my friends that were. I'm not telling them to leave Christianity, but I wish they could be free to realize that they just don't have to feel bad about themselves.
that's that's kind of what I was trying to get to before, which, with my ADD, I'm all over the place. But when I was saying I feel bad for us, not but I want to go back and hug the us who was in the church then and say, come on out, it's going to be okay.
Yeah,
And I want that for everyone else because it's so much better out here. It's so much better. It's
I think
so
we can.
much better. There's so much love out here.
There
That's
is.
it, you know?
There is. So we should invite all our listeners to the next Pride event wherever they are, and I think
Yes.
experience a little slice of heaven.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Beyond Fantasyland Conversations on Sex, Politics, and Religion with your host, Kent Craybill.